Good afternoon, boys. I like to discuss today socialism in Europe and the Russian Revolution. Already, I have discussed up to the Bolshevik Revolution and the Civil War. We know that the Bolshevik Revolution happened in Russia in 1917 in the month of October. And before the beginning of the Bolshevik Revolution, I have discussed about the February Revolution, and I have discussed a lot about the February Revolution, etc. And now we see that when the revolution occurred in Russia under the leadership of Lenin. Lenin was actually leader of the Bolshevik party. He decided to organize the revolution on 16th October, and ultimately the military revolutionary committee was formed, and he attacked the palace. Ultimately, when Kerensky, Alexander Kerensky, the leader of the Bolshevik party, was actually he had to resign, and other ministers were imprisoned, and the ship Aurora began to sail towards the Winter Palace. The military revolutionary tribal committee seized the power. This is how the October Revolution or Bolshevik Revolution began. Now, also I have discussed about the changes, what changes we have noticed after the October Revolution, and I am just telling the point wise. Please listen attentively. You know that the Congress, all Russian Congress of Soviets met with 500 delegates, after the October Revolution, and it issued several proclamation. It appealed to all peoples and states participating in the war to open negotiations for a peace. I know that it opposed annexation and paying for war damages. Russia withdrew from the war, signed a peace treaty with Germany. It was known as Brest-Litovsk. Brest-Litovsk. It was signed in 1918, and it surrendered all this time. Although it is a humiliating treaty, Russia had to surrender a lot of territories. It surrendered all these territories which it acquired since the time of Peter the Great. And as a result of that decree on land, the estates of the Tsar, the church, and the landlords were seized or confiscated and transferred to the Soviets. We know and Soviets of the peasants. The control of industries was passed over to the committees or Soviet workers. Banks, insurance companies, large industries, mines, water transport, railways were nationalized by 1918. The new government, Bolshevik government, also disowned the foreign debts, DBTS debts, and also it took possession of foreign investment without repayment, without payment. Moreover, a declaration of the rights of people was also issued. Rights of people was issued. It gave the right to self-determination to all non-Russian nationalists living within the Russian territories. And also, another one, the new revolutionary government, that is Bolshevik government, that came into being was called the Council of People's Commissioners. It was headed by Lenin. Its first act marked the beginning of the era of socialism in Russia, and it later spread to other countries. Now, let me discuss from my writing. You see that I have already written about it, that what happened after you already have mentioned what happened after the February Revolution and what happened after the October Revolution of 1917. Now we must assess the contribution of Lenin in the Russian Revolution. What was the contribution of Lenin in this regard? First, he organized the Bolshevik party as an instrument for bringing about revolution. He organized the Bolshevik party as an instrument for bringing about revolution. Number two, or B, he set forth the fundamental laws, set forth the fundamental laws about which I will discuss later. He set forth the fundamental laws for successful revolution. And C, under his able leadership, that is Lenin, Bolshevik party put forward clear policies. Under the leadership of Lenin, Bolshevik party put forward clear policies to end the war and transfer land to the peasants and advance the slogan, and they actually raised the slogan, Bolshevik party. What was the slogan? All power to the Soviets. All power to the Soviets. That was the slogan. We see that the D, Lenin proclaimed the right of all people, including those under Russian Empire, to self-determination. You know that Lenin proclaimed the right of all people, including those under Russian Empire territories, to self-determination. And C, under the able leadership of Lenin, Russia and other Soviets were united into USSR, Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, USSR, and it emerged as superpower in the world. Moreover, we see that Lenin already have the fundamental laws I mentioned earlier. What were Lenin's fundamental laws? Lenin's fundamental laws actually were for a successful revolution. You know that Lenin's fundamental laws for a successful revolution. Already I mentioned earlier, now I am like to explain it. What were the fundamental laws for successful revolution? The people should fully understand that revolution is necessary. And be ready to sacrifice their lives. The people should fully understand that revolution is necessary and be ready to sacrifice their lives. That is the number one fundamental principle. And number two, B, existing government should be in a state of crisis, and existing government should be in a state of crisis to make it possible to be overthrown rapidly. Existing government, you see that the existing government should be in a state of crisis to make it possible to be overthrown rapidly. So that this is how the changes could be brought in. This was necessary to bring the new changes. So these are the things what Lenin prescribed, and already I have described what the point wise what changes was brought after the October Revolution. You know that the civil war began in some book it is given 1918 and in some book 1917, whatever in 1918 to 1920, a civil war began. The autocratic Tsarist rule, although collapsed, but it had got support from the other class of people or aristocracy. They are known as Greens, they are known as Whites. White means pro-Tsarist. And some, you see that the civil war began. We see that during the socialist revolutionaries, Greens and the Whites pro-Tsarist, in 1919, they fought with the Red Party. Actually those who are actually wearing cap of red, actually red colored, the Reds, they are known as Bolsheviks. This civil war went on for a long time. Ultimately, in the civil war, the three war, but generally it actually went on for long 3 years and ended with the victory of the Reds, victory of the Bolshevik party. Now, in this regard, I may mention you see that the non-Russian nationalists and Muslims also had a great contribution. Already I have discussed earlier, they are living in Central Asia, the Kiva, the Bolshevik party, and they actually organized the revolution in these areas, and the Muslim, the Jihadists, the reformers, they also organized a revolution, and thus it was possible for them to overthrow the Tsarist rule. Now we can see that the another important contribution, we see that the making a socialist states. You know that already I have discussed about the Bolshevik program, and accordingly the nationalist banks were nationalized. We know lands were distributed among the peasants, and we see that the industries, already I have discussed, industries and banks were nationalized and lands were distributed to the peasants, and now a new planning committee was formed. It accordingly the 5-year plans were introduced in the year 1917, 1927, 32, 33, 1938, and the industrial production increased as a result of it about 1929 and 1933. So, the rapid industrialization began in Russia, and you see that the new economic system also developed, and extending a schooling system also extended. The many schools were opened for the working class, particularly for the women. The creches were opened. Creches were opened, CRECHES, creches, it is called, were established for the women workers, working class, and cheap actually foods were available, and etc. These are some changes in the socialist state. Now we see that Stalinism and collectivization program. Stalinism, you know, it is after the death of Lenin. The Stalin introduced a new type of economy. It is actually, it is said that there is a acute food crisis, food shortage at that time, and for which the kulaks were made responsible. Kulaks were none other than rich peasants, well-to peasants, rich peasants of Russia. And it was Lenin, it was actually Stalin who kulaks were held responsible, because they were, it is said that they were actually collecting the grains and hoarding it. So, it is in 19, you know that the 28 party members made a tour, extensive tour throughout the country, and they, you see that the brought the entire land under the kolkhoz or collective farm system. It is called kolkhoz, and ultimately previously there is small sized land holdings which were abolished, and now the entire lands, all the lands were brought under one state control, and in this way the many peasants lost their territory, lost their lands, and it was Stalin declared that it was necessary to eliminate the kulaks, and in order to do it he adopted several programs, and from 1929 the party forced all peasants to cultivate the land in a collective way, in a collective form called kolkhoz. You see that however, many peasants resisted it, and those who resisted, they were sometimes deported, sometimes punished, and it's said in this way, and also even the peasants also destroyed their own livestock, so in order to avoid it. Whatever it may be, some peasants were allowed to carry on their independent cultivation, but they are not given any freedom. Whatever it may be, this type of collectivization program or Stalin's collectivization program has a very bad effect, and many intellectuals who have protested were you see that they killed, and they were punished, severely punished, and sent to Siberia. So next day we shall discuss about the global influence of the Russian revolution and the USSR. The global influence of the Russian revolution and the USSR, and if necessary I will actually revise my lesson if necessary. Thank you all.